How's Mr. Bass? On their dressage score of 50.3.
So Laura Collett and Mr. Bass circling at the start. She will have 1 second over the optimum time in hand to take the lead from Flora.
I'm joined by Chris and Lisa Stone, who are founders of the Event Rider Masters series. Tell me, how did the idea come about?
Well, I'd like to be able to say it was our idea, but it wasn't. The idea has been worked on by a group of people very heavily involved in the eventing world. So Alex Fox-Pitt being one of them, Di Brunsdon, Terry Mitchell, Jeremy Skinner, and a collection of people who felt very passionately about the need to do something to improve the exposure of the whole eventing world. So they've been working on a concept for a while. They came to us at Christmas and said, we've got this idea of running a series across initially the UK but then out into other parts of the world. We need some funding for it because in its first year, we're not going to get sponsorship, but we need to be able to showcase what we're doing. And it didn't take Chris and I long to say, well, we're prepared to back that. We think it's a great idea. And then ever since the beginning of the year, we've been working on it together. And I think there are a couple of really important aspects to it. One is that Event Rider Masters is a joint venture between ourselves and Eventing Live. And Eventing Live is a not-for-profit body whose sole focus is the sport. So it's a very good balance, I think, of really having sport's best interests at heart, but really trying to move it forward and create something new. So now we're all in it together, and we're onwards and upwards.
Fully committed.
And what do you think it is about the sport of eventing that makes it so entertaining to watch?
Well, we're probably biased, but I think it's a whole lot of things. I think, first of all, the sport itself is extraordinary. Getting one person on one horse to do 3 different horse disciplines that require very different types of expertise, both physical and mental approach, is a really amazing achievement. So you might liken it to a pentathlon or a decathlon for an athlete, but times 2 because you need the horse and the rider. So I think that in itself is incredibly interesting. It's one of the only sports that is men and women competing, directly in exactly the same way. So I think that's incredibly interesting. It's one of the only sports that has such a wide variety of age. So we can look everywhere from, I'm not sure who technically is the oldest rider, but certainly here it would probably be Mark Todd today.
Yeah.
Mark Todd probably picks that prize today. And I'm not sure who's the youngest today, but there are certainly people that are at the very beginning of their career. So I think that's an incredible aspect to it as well. And when you put all of that together and you add in then the environment that we're in, we're sitting here at Barbary, but we've been at Bramham and we've been at Chatsworth. There are amazing locations which are incredibly beautiful to visit, even if there aren't the horse trials running, that have a wonderful opportunity for people to get out and about with their families, with their dogs, and presumably, if we're successful, do the horse trials, but also other things potentially, whether it's food festivals or music things in the evenings, but really create an event that lots of people want to visit, that lots of people want to come to with, say, families and partners, and it's just a great day out.
Now, we've seen a few members of the Chinese media here, for example. Are you trying to go global with this?
Yes. So we have one of the things that's very important to us for the series is that we're working very closely with the FEI to make this work. We want to be part of making eventing bigger and better. This is about trying to make lift the whole thing. Now, if we're trying to do that and we're thinking about how can we help the sport expand, then there's a couple of markets out there that are, pretty big in China and India potentially, where there is a massive untapped potential, where they have enormous interest in equine sport, they have enormous interest in Olympic sport, and here we are, and we've got both. And of course for China, I'm not a good enough bluffer, I don't play poker, I have to tell you, having a Chinese winner at Bramham with Alex Huachan winning was just fantastic, and that's what's driven the initial seeds of interest in China, saying, well, okay, here we are, we've got an Olympics coming up in a sport that's been at every Olympics since 1920, and we might be in with a medal chance. And so we're building on that enthusiasm and saying, well, okay, and here's another way of building on eventing. You know, it is an Olympic sport, but it goes on all year round, every year, not just in Olympic years. And we're using that as really the lever to drive more interest from China.
Looking at the bigger picture, I mean, what is the dream? Where do you hope to see this in, say, 2-3 years' time?
So, in the next couple of years, we'll be expanding the series, adding more countries. So next year, we will be in France, we will be in Germany, we may be in the United States. We're having discussions with the US, but because of the logistics of how you would ever get horses over there, it just needs a bit more planning. I mean, you know, where we're planning to go in France is actually nearer to us today than Blair, for example. So France is not so much of a logistical challenge. So in 2 to 3 years' time, we hope that we will have a 10 to 12 leg series across 4 or 5 countries.
Now, beyond the ERM series, your involvement in eventing is very deep-rooted.
Yes.
Tell us about that. How did that come about? Why eventing?
So it started really with me. Lisa and I both rode as kids, and I'll tell you one little funny story. So when she and I first started going out together, I was an even cockier youth than I am today. And we were in our flat in London one day, and Lisa said, oh, I think, you know, you say you can ride. Well, I'm going to go and book us some riding in Windsor Great Park. And I know she thought, this is going to be hilarious because he can't do it and he'll fall off and I'll just laugh at him all day. And so she booked for us to go out to Windsor Great Park. And, you know, it is one of the, I wasn't sure I was going to be, but actually I just remembered, and I remembered I could ride. And that reignited my interest in horses. And I was probably in my late 20s then. And so when we moved out of London to be able to start a family and have family, you know, kids grow up in the countryside, the kids wanted to be on ponies, and I just started to be around horses more and more and more. And I said to her, you know, I'm just going to start riding again. And she tried to fend me off at the pass by buying me a racehorse, saying, you know, there's a horse, you've got a horse, you don't have to have one to ride. So we had a lovely little racehorse called 3 Weeks, who was a little hurdler, who was not the world's best horse, but that didn't stop me. And then I got into riding and I did a lot of hunting. And then I was fortunately introduced to a friend of a friend who was a really great dressage trainer. And I then became really interested in the mechanics of proper riding. So I started having lots of lessons. And then that trainer, who was a lovely woman called Sarah Whitmore, persuaded me to go eventing, so I went eventing. And then, of course, I quickly figured out that I was really passionate but genuinely useless. And but out of that came the interest in the horses. And then it's kind of grown from there.
And this week we learnt you're off to Rio with Chile. So, I mean, how did you hear the news? Who told you?
Well, we are off to Rio with Chile, and with William, of course. So for us, that is just fantastic news. Of course, we'll talk later, but we're very lucky. We have 2 horses and 2 riders going to Rio. How did we hear the news? The riders were told by Yogi Breisner, who's the chef d'équipe, at the end of last week, who had been selected. And then under pain of death, they were allowed to tell us until the official announcement was made on Tuesday. So clearly we are just beside ourselves, really, with excitement at the idea, first of all, that we'll be going, which is amazing enough, but that we'll be going with 2 fantastic horses and riders. But Chris could talk about Gemma.
Yeah, and so, I mean, Chile is Lisa's horse, and so I was worried she might not invite me as her co-owner. But fortunately, Gemma, who lives with us on our farm in Sussex, has managed to get selected as well. And we were introduced to Gemma a long time ago when she was a very young girl. In fact, when she came to live on the farm with us, it was the first time she had ever lived away from home. And she came, and we've all kind of learned together about what it takes to build a really top-class breeding and producing operation. And Gemma's just, you know, her own riding has improved so much over the last few years, and she's now producing some fantastic horses for us and for other people. So Pebbles, Quick Look the Fifth, known as Pebbles, we own a third of, and then there's another owner, Anne Black, who owns a third, and she's coming to the Olympics with us. And then the other third actually belongs to about 4 or 5 other people. Gemma has done a really good job in building up an interest group of people, and she and Elodie, who works with us, work really hard to make sure that this group of owners are really involved in everything that's going on around the yard and with the horses. And as a result, Gemma has a lot of syndicated horses, or horses like Pebbles, where, you know, Anne and we own 66% of it, but then there's a lot of other people with a little bit, and they're all really excited and really interested. And I think that's the way to take it forward. You know, eventing is an expensive sport, but honestly, you know, one of the owners who might own, you know, 5% of Quick Look gets as much passion and excitement out of a weekend eventing with her as we do. You know, you don't have to own the whole horse. So we've gone slightly the other way. I mean, we had yet another one arrive just yesterday. We had another foal hit the ground, a little colt who is interesting to say he's out of Chico Bella, but he's by one of William's, by a horse called William, which is one of Chili's sons. So because Chili we'd agreed with William Fox Pitt, the rider, that Chili was going to have a very specific program running up to the Olympics. He wasn't even allowed to go to stud last year because William was concerned about him getting injured just in the act of being at stud. So we ran out of stock. So we thought, well, here's a chance to use one of William's offspring and see what we get from that. So we think we have 21 horses of all sorts, from brand new one-day-old foals through to my 22-year-old retired hunter and the kid's 35-year-old shaggy Shetland retired pony, and they all live happily together on the farm.
How exciting. Brilliant. And so going back to the ERM series, we're halfway through. I mean, how's it going so far?
Well, you know, we learn something every time we come out. We're here at Barbary, today for the first time we're trialling a new television approach. So you may have seen in the skies, but we have a drone, we have 18 cameras, I think, a variety of different types of cameras. Neither of us know much about television production, but we're trying a new approach to the televised product, so that's hugely exciting. So every time we come out, we try something new, and we're building up towards the end of the year, clearly at Blenheim, and yeah, we're hoping that it's successful. But I think if you look at the competition itself, at the quality of the riding, at how exciting the competitions have been, it's been fantastic. And you look at who's been on the podium, it's been really amazing. So we're delighted. I think the season will be very successful, and hopefully we'll carry that on into next year.
Great, thank you.